Why the most dangerous hunters wear designer suits and perfect smiles. Ever felt that inexplicable chill when someone impeccably dressed and extraordinarily polite left you with a knot in your gut? That nagging sensation that something was fundamentally wrong, but you couldn't pinpoint exactly what. Maybe it was instinct, or maybe you just crossed paths with a corporate predator. Disclaimer: educational content about toxic corporate behaviors, not a substitute for professional evaluation. Use this knowledge for your personal protection, ethically and responsibly. They don't show up with hockey masks or bloody knives. They arrive with Italian silk ties, expensive cologne, and a handshake that seems Harvard perfected. The modern predator doesn't need physical violence when they've mastered the art of psychological destruction. And the most disturbing part, they're everywhere. Boardrooms, cocktail parties, maybe even at the desk next to yours. The 48th law of power warns us: assume formlessness. The corporate manipulator understands this better than anyone. They morph, adapt, camouflage into any environment like a chameleon wearing Armani. By the time you recognize the game, you've already lost 3 moves. In the 1970s, Canadian psychologist Robert Hare developed a revolutionary tool to identify criminal predators. But here's the sinister detail few people know. When he applied the same test to high-level executives, he found frighteningly similar scores. The difference? One is behind bars, the other is signing your paycheck. Superficial charm is weapon number 1. While normal people take time building trust, the corporate manipulator conquers you in minutes. It's like dark magic, but with PowerPoint presentations. They know exactly what you want to hear before you even know you want to hear it. They study your micro-expressions like a poker player studies marked cards. The big mistake is believing extreme manipulation is about violence. It's not. It's about absence. Absence of empathy, remorse, any genuine connection to other human beings. They see people as chess pieces, useful, disposable, manipulable. And that Italian suit? It's just battle armor. Practical action. Watch how someone treats irrelevant people: waiters, security guards, assistants. A corporate manipulator can't maintain the mask when there's no important audience. It's in these moments the charm slips and you see the coldness underneath. You know that person who has 1,000 success stories but is never responsible for any failure? Who was always betrayed, never the betrayer? Who collects enemies like trophies and calls it having a strong personality? Write that name down. You might have found your elegant predator. The question isn't if you'll cross paths with a suited predator in your life. The question is, when it happens, will you recognize it before becoming prey? If you've already identified someone like this around you, type mask in the comments. And if this content made sense, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. There's much more revelation coming. How they turn your brain into a puppet without you noticing. The manipulation of a corporate predator isn't accidental. It's engineering. While you believe you're making rational decisions, they've already reprogrammed your operating system without you detecting the invasion. Here's something that'll keep you up at night. The human brain didn't evolve to deal with social predators. We evolved to identify lions and snakes, not manipulators. Wearing Patek Philippe watches, our alert system fires when we see sharp teeth, not when we see Excel spreadsheets and quarterly targets. And corporate predators know this better than any neuroscientist. Law 27 of power teaches: create a cult-like following. The elegant predator doesn't need fanatic followers. They just need you to doubt yourself. When you start questioning your own perception of reality, they've already won. This has a name: corporate gaslighting. In 1920s Hollywood, a studio executive named Jack Warner perfected this technique. He built an empire not through talent discovery, but through psychological control. Actors would question their own sanity before questioning his decisions. He didn't need threats when he had the ability to make people distrust their own minds. The studios called him a genius. His victims called him something else entirely. The corporate manipulator uses 3 main tools, and all are invisible. First, the poisoned compliment. You tried so hard on this project. Shame it didn't work out. Sounds supportive, but it's a double punch that makes you feel incompetent and grateful simultaneously. Second, triangulation. They create conflicts between you and colleagues, always remaining the neutral mediator. Third, and most lethal, gradual isolation. They cut your connections one by one, till you depend solely on them for validation. The scariest part, the smarter you are, the more vulnerable you become. Analytical people believe they can't be manipulated because they see things clearly. Exactly what the predator wants you to think. They use your intellectual confidence as the entry point. It's like hacking a banking system using the manager's own password. Practical action. Keep a private record of important conversations. When something doesn't add up later, you have concrete evidence. Manipulators count on your faulty memory and tendency to self-doubt. Documentation is kryptonite to gaslighting. Notice the pattern. They never attack when there are reliable witnesses. Destructive conversations always happen behind closed doors, in empty hallways, on unrecorded calls. When there's an audience, it's all charm and professionalism. It's almost theatrical, and that's exactly what it is. A one-person show where they study you like a script. The corporate predator doesn't feel pleasure destroying you. That would require emotion. They simply see your destruction as a necessary step toward their objective. You're not an enemy. You're an obstacle. Or worse, you're a tool. And tools get discarded when they no longer serve their purpose. Is there someone in your life who always knows exactly what makes you insecure? Who jokes about your weak points and calls it a sense of humor? Who makes you feel lucky to have their attention even when that attention hurts? You're not being too sensitive. You're being hunted. If you recognize these tactics, type control in the comments. Like this video and share it with someone who needs to wake up to the game. The revelation is just beginning. What if the predator is your boss, your partner, or your investor? Now, we're entering truly dark territory. Because one thing is identifying a corporate manipulator from a distance. Something completely different is discovering you're tied to one, professionally, financially, or emotionally. The naked truth. The closer they are, the more dangerous they become. And the more you've invested in the relationship time, money, reputation, the harder it is to admit you're dealing with a predator. It's the perfect trap. Your own resistance to accepting reality becomes the prison. Law 3 of Power warns, conceal your intentions. The elevated manipulator doesn't reveal the game until they're certain you can no longer exit. In the beginning, it's perfection. They're the best boss, the most dedicated partner, the most attentive investor. They bombard you with opportunities, praise, attention. Psychologists call this love bombing. And it works because our brains are addicted to validation. When the bomb explodes, you're already inside the blast radius. There's a fascinating story about a venture capitalist in Silicon Valley during the early 2000s. Let's call him Mr. Golden Touch. He had an uncanny ability to identify promising startups, but an even more disturbing pattern emerged. Founders who partnered with him consistently ended up pushed out of their own companies, broke, and with destroyed reputations. Yet he always appeared as the savior who tried to save them from their own incompetence. It took a journalist comparing notes with 12 different victims to see the identical playbook. By then, he'd moved to a new coast with a new identity. Here's the pattern you need to memorize. The cycle of idealization and devaluation. They elevate you to the clouds until you depend on that elevation. Then gradually, they start withdrawing. Never all at once, that would be obvious. It's a faucet that closes slowly. You work harder, trying to recover the good version of them, without realizing that version was never real. It was bait. The manipulator in a position of power uses their authority as a psychological weapon. They don't need to yell or threaten directly. A prolonged silence is enough. A look, a strategic sigh. They transform the environment into an emotional minefield where you're permanently walking on eggshells. And when you finally explode from stress, they point to your instability as proof the problem was always you. Practical action. Establish non-negotiable boundaries from the start and observe the reaction. A corporate predator shows their true face. When you say no for the first time, the mask cracks. If someone reacts with disproportionate fury, veiled punishment, or emotional manipulation to a reasonable boundary, you have your answer. Know what the biggest danger sign is. When everyone around this person has similar stories of destruction, but they always have an explanation for why it was the other person's fault. Jealous ex-partners, incompetent former employees, unstable previous collaborators. If someone has a graveyard of professional relationships, and the only common denominator is themselves, it's not coincidence. It's a signature. The most disturbing part, even when you discover the truth, leaving is war. Because the corporate manipulator doesn't accept losing control, they'll use every available tool, legal, social, financial, reputational, to keep you trapped or destroy you on the way out. Not from anger, simply because you've become a threat to their house of cards. Are you in a professional relationship where going insane seems more likely than achieving success? Where your achievements are theirs and your mistakes are yours? Where you're afraid of free time because you don't know if you'll disappoint someone? It's not imposter syndrome, it's psychological colonization. If you're in this trap now or have been, type freedom in the comments. Hit that like button so this content reaches those who need it most. Subscribe to the channel. The final act of this revelation comes now. Why? Your survival depends on you. Stop being nice. Here's the final truth nobody wants to tell you. Your politeness, your empathy, your desire to give the benefit of the doubt, all of this is fuel for the corporate predator. They don't see your qualities as virtues. They see them as exploitable vulnerabilities. Society programmed you to avoid conflict, to be reasonable, to not judge people quickly. Great for normal social coexistence. Fatal when dealing with predators, because while you're trying to be fair, they're 10 steps ahead, calculating how to use your fairness against you. It's like bringing Aikido principles to a gunfight. Law 15 of power is cruel but necessary. Crush your enemy totally. I'm not talking about revenge that's still playing their game. I'm talking about total disconnection. Corporate manipulators feed on reaction, anger, sadness, fear. Everything is fuel. The only winning move is removing yourself from the board completely. No drama, no explanations, no closure. Simply disappear from their life. There's a documented case of a tech entrepreneur in Austin who discovered his co-founder was a predator. For 2 years, he endured psychological warfare while secretly building an exit strategy. He transferred intellectual property, secured separate funding, documented every manipulation. When he finally left, the manipulator tried the usual playbook: smear campaigns, legal threats, turning investors against him. But he had anticipated every move. The predator expected emotional chaos he could exploit. He got strategic silence instead. Within a year, the original company imploded while the entrepreneur thrived elsewhere. The manipulator counts on your desire to fix things, to make them understand, to prove your worth. Forget it. You're not dealing with someone who reasons like you. It's literally different brain wiring. Trying to make a predator feel empathy is like trying to make a colorblind person see color through argumentation. The hardware doesn't exist. Practical action. Create your exit strategy before you need it. Have separate financial resources. Maintain your own professional connections. Preserve evidence of everything. When you're prepared, you're not desperate. And predators sense desperation like sharks sense blood in water. Here's what happens when you finally break free. First, relief. Then anger at taking so long. Then shame for falling for it. And finally, and this is crucial, acceptance that it wasn't your fault. You weren't weak. You were hunted by someone who dedicates their entire existence to this game. The difference between you and them: you have other things in life. They only have this. The world is full of suited predators because our system rewards exactly the traits they possess: lack of scruples, superficial charm, willingness to destroy others without hesitation. It's not a bug, it's a feature. As long as we measure success only by results and not by methods, we'll keep creating elegant predators. But now you know. You know how to identify them. You know the patterns. You know that inexplicable discomfort is your evolutionary alert system screaming. You know that excessive charm is a red flag, not an invitation. You know that when someone seems too good to be true, they usually aren't true. The last thing a corporate manipulator wants is for their prey to communicate with each other. Because when victims compare notes, the pattern becomes obvious. They're not misunderstood geniuses. They're serial predators, using the same playbook on different people. Their power lies in the silence and shame of victims. Break that silence, break the power. You can't change the manipulator, can't save them, can't make them see the error, but you can save yourself, can protect others by sharing knowledge, can refuse to be prey, and can finally use the intelligence they tried to turn against you to see the game before entering it. If this content opened your eyes to something you were denying, type awake in the comments. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and share this video. It might be the difference between someone walking into the trap or escaping it. Knowledge is the only weapon that works against elegant predators.